What's up, guys? Welcome to Roto Grinders. Welcome to the, this is not the afternoon grind. I'm back. Mortimer, I'm back. I was here at 11 o'clock. I don't know if you caught me in DC. I'm now here with Boggs. This is the happy hour. Are you celebrating the happy hour show today? Partaking in any beverages of any choice?
Nope, just a water today. I was at the dentist all morning. So after getting your teeth cleaned, I don't think they advise heading straight to crack open a beer. But later, when the games get going, I'll indulge myself.
That's frowned upon, apparently. I wasn't aware of that. I know everybody in chat right now is all distracted by Neymar and Hulk and Fred. Inexplicably, there's a defender on Brazil named Fred. I don't know how that happens, but Fred cracked the top 11 somehow. But I know you're not a big fan of soccer, but Fred? Okay, I'm not going to go to a little Fred rant, but people are going to be talking soccer in the chat. Don't be confused. Don't be thrown off. That's a good time to mention our sponsor, Draft Street. They have contests starting tomorrow for the World Cup and all the way leading up to all throughout the month and beyond. January 26th, June 26th is the 100K World Cup big score. Pretty awesome. I will be a fish and I will jump in there for a couple games. And I am watching the Brazil game in the background, so if anything outrageous happens, I'll probably make note of it if the chat doesn't already. So, all right, we're talking baseball, though. Talking baseball, America's game, right? America's pastime, at least in theory it is. Football may have passed it by, America's version. But baseball today, I don't know if you've taken a look. Have you seen the weather? Things look a bit dicey in a couple spots.
Oh yeah, it certainly looks like it's going to be a tough one. Trying to kind of figure out this weather. Perfect timing now that we've got our own meteorologist, so we don't have to do anything more than what we're required. Trying to give you guys some picks. We're not the expert weathermen. I would encourage you guys to follow our weather guy, see what he has to say about these games. I can tell you from the outlook of it. It doesn't look good in some spots here, but we'll
Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and the Mets, right?
Yeah. Fortunately, all those games are on the East Coast, and with the exception, I believe, one game that might see a little bit of rain, we're going to know whether or not they're at least going to postpone the entire game before first pitch, which should at least allow you to save your guys selves from getting burned. So one piece of advice: always have a contingency plan when weather goes awry, just in case you're scrambling at the last minute. But either way, I think that maybe one of the two of those games will play. And fortunately, it didn't look like any of those pitchers, at least from my end, were going to be targeted. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, things can change. Drop of a hat. Follow that weather up until first pitch. Don't get burned, and like I said, have a backup plan.
Yeah, obviously this is a time where we say this every single day because it's rain every single day, but we're 2.5 hours before lineup and lock time. Weather changes. It's kind of fickle. It's actually pouring here outside. So I'm in South Florida, but that obviously doesn't affect things. But, check in the forms. Our RG guy, he's pretty solid. He's actually been pretty much dead on, as far as I can tell. So check back in an hour or two. And, yes, good call. Contingency plan is the move. Let's just assume these games are going to play. We'll talk about them as if they're going to play. Otherwise, we would have less things to talk about. So let's starting pitching today. Interesting. Two best pitchers going up against each other. Chris Sale, Max Scherzer. Figure it out for me. Who do you like?
Especially with all this weather going back east, it looks like this game shouldn't be too affected by rain. I'm seeing right now only like a 20% chance early on, and then pretty clear after that. So I think both pitchers are good to go. I do like them both, but there are some concerns for both of them. Obviously with Sale, you have Detroit, him not having success against them pretty much throughout his career. You look at some of these BVP numbers, and a lot of these Detroit hitters have gotten to him in the past. And then on the flip side, you got Scherzer, who, despite a decent start in his last outing, had struggled in his 4 previous starts on the road. You also factor in that it's in a hitter's ballpark, and the wind is blowing out at, I believe, around 12 miles an hour. So I don't think these guys are clear-cut number one options. They are for me, obviously because of their pedigree, but and the fact that none of these other pitchers really have good matchups and are capable of putting up the numbers that they're posting. But aside from that, I really think, especially in your cash games, it's smart to just roll out Scherzer and Sale. Hope that they're able to put up big games because, you do have a White Sox team that can strike out. Scherzer's had success against them, and then Detroit, they disappointed last night against John Danks, and really they haven't really blown up very many pitchers this entire season. So I know I'm sounding like I'm contradicting myself, but I am on both pitchers. I'm just saying that say if there are two other aces on the mound tonight, I might consider it. So in your GPPs, might be able to take a look at someone else, but I'm certainly not off of either pitcher because no one on the board outside of these two is capable of posting a big game like they are, in my opinion.
Is John Danks pulling a Dallas Keuchel? Like, everybody used to stack against him, and he's all of a sudden good, or is this like an illusion?
I just think it's a situation where he's hitting his spots. He's getting out there. He's feeling good. I had actually read a few things kind of deeper into his peripheral stats that suggested his strikeouts were increasing. His velocity was remaining constant. The last I read, that was a few weeks ago, kind of before he went on this string of good starts. But I mean, we've seen it from guys like Joe Saunders. Even Mark Burley. These soft toss and lefties that can get crafty if they've got all their pitches working. And if they're hitting their spots, just because you're not throwing 95 like Chris Sale and with movement doesn't mean you can't be effective.
All right, so you talked about expecting, you're not really sure. Obviously, the two of the best offenses in play. It's clearly the two best arms in play as well. According to Vegas, they expect the arms to win. The over-under is 7, and it's pretty much a pick-'em. Chicago is a slight favorite. I think this is the first time Mad Max has been a dog all year because obviously it's rare that he faces someone the likes of Chris Sale. Chris Sale was pitching amazing last game until Mike Trout decided to change things. They hit a grand dong against him and just completely turned that game around. I will say past history. Let me see if I have this pulled up. Mad Max faced the White Sox, and the White Sox strike out more than anybody else. 12 innings this year. That's not a big sample size. Two earned runs, 17 Ks. And I pulled up the numbers for Chris Sale for last year against Detroit, and he just dominated him. 39 innings, 40 Ks, a 1.83 ERA, and a 1.04 WHIP. So I don't think he's afraid.
No, and he's the ace of that staff, despite being so young. I will say that I do like the lineup that Detroit rolled out. They rolled out pretty much the same lineup, the exception of throwing in J.D. Martinez in there, who's kind of a boomer bust guy. He's going to be up there guessing, so we'll get to him in a bit when we get to hitters. But I'm going to say that the two most important hitters in each of these respective lineups, you might call me crazy, for tonight, are going to be the leadoff men for each respective team. Rajai Davis is getting on base. He's always a threat to steal. He's going to have Chris Sale worried. And then, obviously that can lead for an opportunity to, miss a pitch or leave a pitch right down the middle for that murderer's row of Kinsler, Cabrera, V-Mart, and Torrey Hunter. And then you also got J.D. Martinez in there, like I said, the wild card, who's, going to be up there guessing. If he can get a hold of one, he can get a hold of one. But, either way, I really think they're in a good spot. Eaton on the other end, he's a guy that if he gets on will likely steal with Holiday catching. So I think that, if you think one of these pitchers is going to blow up, at least get a leadoff hitter in addition to a couple of the big bats, because I'm not saying anything's going to blow up, but we've seen it happen from time to time this year, seemingly more often than we all expected. But yeah, so that's my take on just the kind of lineups that are going out there, kind of digging deep into these guys. But like I said, I'm not off of these guys. If I was in my cash games, I would just load up both of them, and then try and find some hitters from other games because Vegas they're right more often than they're wrong, and they're not predicting too many runs, and I don't really expect too many runs either. But I'm just saying it's that potential for blow up is always there, so just keep that in mind.
You mentioned the Tigers lineup, rolling out 9 righties against Chris Sale. Doesn't mean he can't shut them down. It does make it a little more daunting, a little more tricky to get past everybody. There's no lefty to pick on, no Alex Avila. So yeah, it's gonna be a fun game to watch. As far as price wise on Draft Street, Chris Sale is almost 24K and Mad Max is 20.7. So if you're just gonna go by price, I guess you kind of have to go with Scherzer, correct?
Well, I mean, like I said, I would roll out both of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know, these guys are going to get their strikeouts either way. You know, I think that both, you know, Scherzer especially is probably a little bit more capable of going deeper into that game, more likely to get a win, in my opinion. If I were betting, I'd probably take Chicago. But either way, I mean, you've got enough offense on either side, despite the strikeout potential, you know, to get either pitcher a win. So, you know, there's no weather. These are the top two guys. You know, pay up for them, and you know, maybe look elsewhere in a GPP. But like I said, there's not a whole lot to love. You know, scrolling down the page.
It's weird that guys like Miguel Cabrera, and Victor Martinez, they're contrarian tonight. So there you go. If you want to stack one of these teams and hope they, beat up one of the best pitchers in baseball, by all means, that's an interesting tournament play. Okay, so if you're not going to start Chris Sale, how about this, by the way, single pitcher site? Who do you go with? You have to pick one.
Well, so say over on FanDuel.
Sure.
You know, in your cash games, I would probably lean towards Scherzer. I said I think he's more capable of going deeper into that game. He won't be on any sort of pitch count. Sale hasn't really been on a pitch count, but he's just been pitching so efficiently. I think that as Detroit gets more and more kind of video scouting on Jose Abreu, that his numbers are going to come down a bit. They're in the division. They're going to play each other a bunch. I know he hit a home run last night, but it's only a matter of time before they start to figure him out. And then really, without Abreu, I mean, you look at that lineup, it's not that daunting. So if Scherzer can really get around Abreu, I think he's in a better spot. You've obviously got a much better offensive lineup on Detroit. So I would probably lean towards Scherzer, say on a site like FanDuel where the win is so important.
Yeah, the only tricky thing there is that it's pretty much a 50-50 as far as who's going to win the game, but there really isn't any sort of, like, as far as I can tell, unless I missed it, any like huge big favorite today. If you're not going to go with Scherzer, if you're not going to go with Sale, if you only roster one, you can roster up to 3 starting pitchers on Draft Street, at least 2 you have to roster. Who are we going to couple them with? How about Samardzija, the Shark, versus Pittsburgh? Well, it's raining there, so I don't know if we can go there. I'll tell you who I like as cheapies, and I'm not sure if you're with me or not, but much like how Chris Sale and Max Scherzer are pitching against each other, and they're the 2 elite pitchers of the day, I like Ronis Elias going up against Chase Whitley for the cheapies. I think they're both fine for their price.
Yeah, I was kind of looking into that. Obviously, Elias had that fantastic outing against the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. I remember everyone was all over the Yankees because he had struggled up to that point.
I was.
But he's kind of turned things around. You got a live fastball and a lethal hook. And you're going to get this Yankees lineup where all their best hitters are left-handed. They will have Beltran back in the lineup, but he's been hitting right-handed pitchers much better over the last few years. It's in a pitcher's ballpark. If you're looking to target some guys on some other teams, Elias would probably be my number 2. I really thought Kyle Lewis was in a decent spot. Same with Samardzija. But you just can't really roll these guys out at this stage of the day when it looks like both those games are going to get rained out or at least be affected by weather early on in that game.
Yeah, assuming weather was fine, I like Samardzija at 17.2K. I think it's a very fair price. And I don't hate Edinson Volquez at 11.3K. I know that's a sentence I'd rarely say. I don't hate Edinson Volquez, but he's actually been fine, and that price is really, really cheap, and the Cubs are not very good. So, again, if the weather is fine, I'm perfectly okay with Volquez at that price.
Yeah. You do have Lester at home as a pretty big favorite. Obviously, aside from one, John Danks, of all people, blow up. Cleveland has been pretty miserable against left-handed batters, but in Fenway Park, It always seems like it's a struggle with John Lester. I kind of compare him to C.J. Wilson, in which every time he gets out there and you watch him and you load up on him, he gives you a heart attack because he'll walk batters, he'll get frustrated, he'll lose his composure, he'll give up a solo shot, here and there, but he is the ace of that staff, and he's a competitive guy. So I don't hate Lester, but I would agree with you that I think Elias is probably going to be my number two option because of his price.
So I ask you this all the time. Would you consider coupling, say, Chris Sale and Max Scherzer and a relief pitcher? Because the win does not mean a heck of a lot on draft sheet. Obviously, you want your guys to win. You can't win 2 games when you're throwing out 2 pitchers in the same game. Would you consider doing that today? Because the other options aren't spectacular necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. With really only 2 guys that anyone really loves, or that we love, I would definitely consider it. There really isn't very many high-profile bats in games that we're looking at that aren't going to probably get rained out, that are really available or that you really need in your lineups. So yeah, I think there's a ton of value spread out. You could load up on both of them. If you're playing in GPPs and you got 2 lineups, take one Scherzer with Elias, take one Sale with Elias, and take Joe Nathan or is Belisari?
Joe Nathan. We can't take Joe Nathan, can we?
Well, he's been terrible, but he's still the closer, isn't he? Or is it Jabba now?
I guess it's Joe Nathan. He pitched the other night, Jabba, but that was because Nathan had like 33 pitches or so the night before, and he could have used the break, obviously. So I don't think it's necessarily Jabba Chamberlain's job. But I think I'd go in a different spot as far as relief pitcher. I don't know. I do get the strategy of wanting to couple your starting pitcher with a relief pitcher. I get that, obviously. But Fernando Rodney, can we trust him? Maybe.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, you could take Elias as closer, but that's Fernando Rodney, and I know damn well from years of experience as an Angel fan how miserable he is.
Belisario is the closer, but I don't know if I trust Belisario pitching against that Detroit lineup.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Belisario. I think we touched on him yesterday. The guy's just he's got probably the most movement on his 2-seam fastball, but he doesn't know where the hell it's going when it leaves his hands. So I'd be cautious about using either of them. But if it's going to be a close game and you want that win and you're in a GPP, I think it's kind of a sound strategy to just take Sale or Scherzer's relief pitcher.
Inexplicably, by the way, that's 2 days in a row. We're having a streak now of mentioning Belisario on the show. We're at some kind of a record.
Yeah, that has to be some kind of record. I'm gonna say, unless it was back in his Dodger days when he was blowing up every single night. SportsCenter or MLB Network probably could have mentioned him more than once or in consecutive days in a row.
I'd want Jason Grilli. I like him, but the rain. So if I'm going to pick a relief pitcher, that's the guy that stands out as far as price. Trying to see if anybody else stands out. David Robinson, I don't mind. Robertson, like I said, I don't hate Chase Whitley for the Yankees. I mean, you can couple Whitley with Elias, one of the big boys, and you can run out 3 starting pitchers if you want. You only need a relief pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more inclined to, if you're going to take one of the 2 starters, take their relief pitcher. Don't try and guess other games, because if you're guessing other games and you're expecting it to be a low-scoring game, then why aren't you on that starting pitcher in the first place?
Well, I mean, you can get a save in a 9-8 game.
That's definitely true, but I mean, at that point, it's just too difficult to predict, in my opinion. I like to stick with the low scores in the few times that I have tried to go for a relief pitcher. But like we said, either way, you could even go with, haven't tried to do this yet, but maybe try and go Sale, Scherzer, and Elias, because like I said, there's a ton of value out there from bats that I'm liking tonight. So hey, that could ultimately be a move that pays off if Scherzer and Sale show up and have huge games.
You'd have to average 4.7K per player. I'm not sure if that's doable. Maybe. It's possible. Maybe.
There's Yeah, there's a couple of minimum salary guys that are getting a start tonight. We'll get to those guys here in a sec.
Let's
Uh,
get to the hitters.
yeah.
Catcher. I think the best spot is probably Jonathan Lucroy. Rain, rain, rain. Watch out. The price isn't spectacular. He's the highest guy on the board. Tell me what your thoughts on Lucroy or your top guy.
Well, Lucroy was my top guy. He's coming in, hitting the ball very well. The hottest catcher that I've got on the board coming in, and while his price is up, his matchup is great. He's not the guy that goes out and hits you 2 or 3 home runs, but he's a guy that'll go 4 for 4 with 3 doubles. And in a spacious ballpark, that actually plays into his strengths as a hitter. So the doubles machine Lucroy was my number 1 option, weather permitting. My number 2, I really think that Miguel Montero is in a decent spot as well. I believe his price is it's up there, but
It's fair. 6K is fair.
But he's taking on Scott Feldman, who doesn't strike anyone out. Montero isn't necessarily a high strikeout guy. He can take a walk. He has some power, and he's in a favorable spot in the lineup with guys that in front of him that can get on base. So Montero's my number 2 option. If you're in the mood to pay up tonight, you obviously won't have to worry about weather in that game, and it's in a hitter's ballpark too. So I think he's a nice pivot from Lucroy if you were planning on spending up.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the price is even at 6K is that's really fair for Drafter, I think, for the top catcher on the board essentially. If it's not Lucroy, I liked AJ Pierzynski, but he's not playing tonight, so I don't like AJ Pierzynski now. Maybe in the same game for the price, Yan Gomes, 4.5K. That's pretty fair. Not the greatest matchup in the world, but nice ballpark.
Yeah, I've got him down here as my number 3 option, right behind Montero. We've seen him kind of bounce around the order. He's been 9th, 8th, 7th, 6th. He's back at 8th tonight because they are getting Nick Swisher in the lineup. Not the greatest spot in the lineup, but he's going to have Santana, Rayburn, Swisher. All these guys can draw a walk. So he's down there for a reason because he can get that big hit against lefties. And, hitting in Fenway Park, there's always a potential for a ton of runs, and it's not easy to hit a bomb out there in left field as long as you can get under it.
Is there anyone else you see any cheapie? Jason Castro is really, really cheap, 3.4K, but he's facing a lefty, so don't love that unless Miley gets out of the game early.
Castro's not even in the lineup. The one guy I would consider if you do need to punt would be David Ross. For all the same reasons. He's up against a pitcher that doesn't, Chas Tomlin's just simply a strike thrower. He's not going to blow anyone away. Ross does tend to strike out, but he also has power. So I would go down to Ross if you need that salary relief as a GPP only play. But yeah, aside from that, it shouldn't be too hard to get a Yan Gomes. I know you don't like guys hitting down there in the order. But if you can pay up for Montero, that's probably the route I would go, assuming Lucroy is rained out.
I'm fine with Gomes. American League, I'll take the 8th inning guy. National League, you got to really, talk. I got to be really, really desperate to take an 8-hole guy in the National League. But Gomes, I'm fine with for the price, but I think Miguel Montero makes the most sense. I think that's 1.5 more isn't very. That's not exactly exorbitant. So. I think Montero makes the most sense for catcher today. First base, what do you got?
Well, there's a lot to love at first base today. It's kind of difficult because there were a few guys that were really cheap that I was, planning on targeting in some GPPs. Neither guy's starting, so basically it is going to be a night to pay up for me. Obviously, assuming the game plays, Encarnacion would be my number 1 option. Taking on a young pitcher that's been struggling all season long. I know Toronto's disappointed the last few days, and his price is up, but his price is up there because Draft Street, they understand the matchups in their favor. So I do like Encarnacion if you do have that salary relief, but if you're not on sale or if you're on Chris Sale, Miguel Cabrera has got a discounted price. That's way too cheap for him. So I do like Miguel Cabrera, although since I am going to be on Sale and Scherzer, I don't know if I'm going to go that route with him or any of those hitters in that game.
Yeah, I think. Well, you mentioned Encarnacion. You can't. Adam Lean for 6.6K. That's perfectly fine. Again, whether it's a concern there. On the other side, Chris Davis, Crush Davis. I know it's a lefty on lefty matchup, but do you see his price tag today? 4.5K. That's just a little bit too low. It's certainly worth considering, especially in the tournament.
Yeah, I definitely. That's the one thing that kind of scares me though, is because he actually has that BVP working in his favor, and it's gonna be. I think Draft Street kind of did this on purpose to kind of fuel this debate everyone's been having about BVP, because he hasn't really been hitting lefties this year, but he has shown in the past that he can hit them. He's back at home, and he's a guy that likes to kind of sit on and hit on slow changeups and curveballs. Uh, really what I've seen this year is his swing has been a little bit longer, so he's been struggling on some of these really hard, fast fastballs. I know he did get one off of De La Rosa last night, I believe, but before his swing was a little bit longer, which would kind of play into it would play into how Burley pitches. So I don't have a problem with Chris Sale, especially down at his price. Also, I think Mike Napoli's in a pretty decent spot at a moderate price, a little bit more expensive, but in a game that we don't have to worry about getting rained out or anything. Napoli's up there for me. He can hit righties. Yeah, he loves to pull balls over that monster out there and batting cleanup in front of Ortiz. I expect Tomlin to be pitching around him tonight, so Napoli could have a few RBI opportunities.
Yeah, now's a good time to mention that David Ortiz is in an absolutely great spot, and I say this all the time whenever we're talking about Draft Street. He's not on your first base, but he's not listed anywhere else. You pretty much got to type his name in to find him. And David Ortiz is less than 7K, 6.9K. Lefty on lefty matchup, but I don't care. At that price against Mark Burkle, he can hit lefties. He's fine.
Well, Ortiz is taking on Josh Tomlin, who's a righty.
Oh, wow. Yeah, okay, I'm switching. Yeah, we're talking about Baltimore. Yeah, even better. That's ridiculous. It's way too cheap. He's got to be in your lineup.
Yeah, I mean, it's the matchup's in his favor. Like I said, I think they're going to pitch around him, but he's going to get his production, and as long as Pedroia can get on base and keep that base open or keep that base from being open, then he's going to get his pitches to hit.
So Chris Carter, he had the double dong. I don't know if you know me. I love the lefties against whenever Houston faces a lefty. I always get excited. I'm always intrigued. I always want to make a GPP team with the Astros versus lefties. And Wade Miley's in town. He's not a good lefty. Chris Carter double donged last night. He's one of a number of guys that I'm intrigued by the Astros. Are you with me? 4.6K.
Well, yeah. I mean, Chris Carter is he's not a streaky hitter. He's the definition of boom or bust. He can hit 2 home runs tonight, not hit one for a month. Hit home run in 4 consecutive games. You never know when it's going to come. I was talking about J.D. Martinez as being a guess hitter. Chris Carter, he pretty much, the ball has to find his bat. He's got that nice price tag. It's very cheap, but he is also a guy that can go 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts, which is how many points is that? What is that, like -3 points or something on our sponsor?
You lose 0.75 points every time you strike out.
Yeah, so that could burn you big time. I was actually kind of hoping Jesus Guzman was in the lineup. I know he hasn't been doing much of anything this year, but he's a guy that I trust a little bit more than Carter, and he's all the way down there at a rock bottom price. Obviously not in the lineup, but I don't know. I'd be assuming they both play. I would go Chris Davis over Chris Carter 100 times out of 100.
All right, fair enough. I think they both have, obviously Chris Davis is a better hitter, but I think Chris Davis is probably in a better spot. How about that?
I don't know. Like I said, it's that you can't play a matchup with Chris Carter. All of his peripherals and everything, it's all backwards. I know he does hit lefties, but he likes to hit on the road more than he does at home, which is an extreme hitter's park. I don't think you can ever play a matchup with Chris Carter because he can go deep off of anyone, but he can also go 0 for 4 with 4 Ks off anyone. So I would caution against using him in your cash games unless you absolutely need that salary relief.
Fair enough. Any other first baseman you want to mention? I guess you mentioned Miggy Cabrera as kind of a contrarian play. He's really cheap, 7.6K. Jose Abreu, 7.6K as well. So those guys are both worth a look if you're not on the top dogs and you want to go against the. I'm assuming they won't be very heavily owned. I don't think they will, considering the matchup. But anybody else you want to mention at first, or do you want to pivot over to the Keystone position?
Well, I mean, if the game plays, I think Rizzo's obviously in play. But like we said, we're not expecting the weather to hold up in that game. I do like Rizzo's price. I love it. I wish there wasn't any weather in that game because up against Edison Volquez, Rizzo coming in as the hottest hitter is definitely in play. But yeah, we can go ahead and move on to the second. I just wanted to mention that we're not off of Rizzo so if that game does play.
Fair enough. All right, who do you got for me at second base?
Jose Altuve. He's
Yes.
my number one option. Anytime, pretty much against anyone. This is one of the most consistent hitters in all of baseball for the last couple of years. The little engine that could. I'm all over him tonight against Wade Miley, and I'm expecting him to continue his hot hitting ways. So he's got the splits in his favor. He's got the nice ballpark. He can steal a bag, and help your team in a variety of ways. So that's what I look for when I pay up for a player, and Altuve is my guy tonight.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for Altuve. He's one of my favorite players. The price, I'm not a huge fan of. Little expensive, 7.3K, but he's leading the American League in hits, in batting, in stolen bases. He's hitting over 400 versus lefties. He's a super cash game play, but Robinson Cano is cheaper. He's not having nearly the year that Jose Altuve is. I don't think. I look at the points per game. Altuve's got him by 0.3 more points per game. I don't think it was more actually, but I guess Cano has some bigger games every once in a while. But okay, so if not those guys, Jason Kipnis versus Lester, 6.1. That's a pretty fair price. And Aaron Hill, 5.2K. What do you think of that price?
They're both intriguing. The other guy that I was really kind of hoping to play tonight was Bonifacio up against Volquez for the stolen base potential. Obviously, that game has weather concerns, so if you're not in the mood to pay up at second base, Kipnis, he's shown that he can hit lefties and righties in Fenway Park. I would probably lean towards Aaron Hill just because I think Feldman is a worse pitcher than Lester. Either way, both of these guys kind of have been inconsistent. I know they've both kind of been dealing with a bit of injuries throughout the year, but both are up there in the upper echelon of second basemen, and they do have very nice prices. So that's pretty much all. That's pretty much that's it for me. I'm not really inclined to go with Kinsler. I know I said that he could get some opportunities, but I would only play Kinsler if I planned on stacking Detroit. And then Pedroia just hasn't really been, doing it for me this year, and his price is still up there. So if you're not in the mood to pay for Altuve, Cano is in play for me. But going down, I would probably lean towards Aaron Hill over Kipnis.
Yeah, I would too. I would throw out one more guy probably for a tournament. I know it's Scooter Gannett's year, week, month, whatever it may be, but whenever they face a lefty, they throw in Ricky Weeks, and he's leading off tonight, 5.8K. So I think for a tournament, he's worth the look. But again, we caution you, there is some weather lurking in New York, so take note of that.
And strikeout potential from Ricky Weeks. So I'd be more inclined to play him on like DraftKings, where he's really boom or bust, and he won't burn you with a few strikeouts, especially leading off too, which I don't really agree with Ron Renicky. I don't agree with him putting Ricky Weeks leading off tonight.
Who do you want leading off, Segura?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping he was leading off too, actually. But that's why I say Ricky Weeks is certainly not a cash game play for a tournament. Sure, why not? I mean, this guy has shown flashes in the past. He was a legitimate fantasy player. It doesn't really show up much more these days, but he's got an opportunity today. Milwaukee mashes the lefty, so if he gets on, he's a pretty good chance he comes in. But all right, let's get out of second base. Let's stop talking about Ricky Weeks, spending way too much time on him. Third base, what do you got for me?
Well, my top option was Aramis Ramirez, and my number 2 option was Luis Valbuena. Not liking the weather in either of those games. So I think Brock Holt becomes my number 1 option, believe it or not. You won't have to worry about any weather concerns against a very hittable pitcher. This guy's been quite the find. He's been, a diamond in the rough for the Red Sox this year, leading off, just getting on base, stealing. He's got a little bit of pop, and the most important thing is his ability to hit with runners in scoring position, which has really been an important component of his game and why he's up there. So guys later on deeper in that lineup that are getting on base, like Bradley, who's hitting ninth for them. It's Herrera, who can draw a walk and get a steal. They can get on steal base. Brock Holt's been effective with runners in scoring position as well. So he's got a very moderate price compared to the rest of the industry, and I think he's in a tremendous spot.
Carlos Santana, 5.2K in Boston. Any interest there? It's kind of a discounted price. He's not been spectacular, but we do see he has the potential to blow up. He's got that in his bat. It's in his arsenal, is it not?
Yeah, but he's just all he's been doing this year is walking. So it's more of a GPP play. I would feel much safer either way with Holt in my lineup. But Carlos Santana does have that ability.
So here's another GPP play for you. I told you I like the Astros. Matt Dominguez is 4.4K against Wade Miley at home versus a lefty. Yes? Maybe?
Yep, I've got him written down. I also am liking Mike Aviles a little bit tonight for some reason, batting ninth. He's been hitting pretty well against lefties. One of the few Indians bats. I think Aviles is a little bit safer, but Dominguez does have the upside against Wade Miley, batting fifth. I don't have a problem with either of those guys as kind of your cheaper range value plays.
Okay, here's the obligatory David Wright. He's 4.6K, which is that's too cheap for his skill set. It's not too cheap considering how terrible he's been playing of late. He had 4 hits in his last 10 games. He's been awful. Again, weather lurking, but the price is right. I like to buy low, so I think he's certainly worth a look. If you're a BBP guy, I'm pretty sure he's a really solid BBP. I can pull that up for you in just 1 second. Let me see if I can get that.
He has excellent BBP versus Loesch.
Yeah, for some reason, generally speaking, he matches the lefties, but for some reason, he's got a nice GPP versus Loesch, and I am stalling for time so I can pull this up and find it, and bam, I found it. 9 for 21, double, 2 dongs, 4 Ks. Pretty solid. Not a huge sample size, but it gives you some sort of hope in the price. I'm playing the price more than the BBP than anything else. And,
fortunately, we hopefully won't have to worry about the weather in that game holding up. But yeah, if that game is good to go, I have Wright written down here. I have him behind Holt, but
interesting.
It's just simply because I'm waiting for him to turn it around. I've played that card too many times trying to jump on him going on a hot streak. But it's tempting at 46.88 to take David Wright.
Yeah, I keep rolling him out there at that price, and he's not doing anything for me. Anybody else? The Juan Francisco tournament, I suppose. Sure. Weather, yada yada yada. Manny Machado, 5.3K, kind of cheap. Seager, 5.3. Anybody jump out for you?
Probably Seager of those 3 you mentioned. Seager's a streaky hitter. This entire Mariners team really hasn't been doing much of anything lately in Safeco Park, pitcher's ballpark. But Seager, if he gets a hold of one, he can certainly get one out of there. So I don't hate Seager at his price. But like I said, I'm gonna stick with Holt as my top option.
Fair enough. Is Holt playing left field tonight, or is he actually at third base? Where's he playing?
He is playing third base.
Okay.
Where he belongs.
That's where he doesn't belong in left field?
No.
He made that nice catch.
Or first base, or any other positions. He belongs at third base.
Trying to see if anything interesting is some lineups have come out. Didi Gregorius is leading off, then Para, Goldie, Prado, Montero, Hill, Owings, and Peralta. I'm always curious what Kirk Gibson does. Whenever he has the boggle machine with everybody's name written down and just kind of mixes it up, and that's what came up for today.
Yeah, don't get me started on Kirk Gibson, but
try
lineup isn't as bad as we've seen in a few recent weeks here. But getting Owens and Gregorius in there's not a terrible call with the DH, especially with Aaron Hill coming off an ankle injury. So I actually don't really have very much criticism for Kirk Gibson tonight.
Yeah, I don't. I would sign off on this. That's fine. Good job, Kirk. Job well done. So they're gonna lose tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
Are we done with third base? Anybody else you want to talk about?
Nope.
Oh, like Boss Man Jr. just donged. And the chat. Here's the thing: the chat. I don't think is paying attention to us. I'm not even sure if we're even on air. If anybody's listening to us, Boss Man Jr. just donged. They're talking about that. They're talking about Neymar. They're talking about Brazil. They're talking about everything else but baseball. So we have to try to if there's any questions, let us know that we're alive and you're alive. Fire them in here. We'll see if you can knock some out.
200 people watching us, man, and hey, we're just answering all our questions. So they got nothing to stump us with.
Well, there you go. Exactly. Anything they wanted to inquire about, we've covered. I'm sure they wanted to know about Ronald Belisario. That was all the questions. Shortstop. What do you got for me at shortstop?
Well, top option, unfortunately, is in a game that is not looking too good, and it's Jose Reyes. I think he had tremendous potential for doubles, runs, RBIs, and stolen bases with Caleb Joseph behind the dish, and Gaussman, who's a inexperienced right-hander. He's the one guy I would probably consider paying up for tonight. But after him, it was kind of a toss-up for me because Asdrubal Cabrera has burned me millions of times in the past, but he's swinging the bat a little bit better of late. He's hitting second in that lineup, but I look at him compared to Didi Gregorius, who's only just over 4,000, and is leading off against a pitcher who doesn't really K very many people, and I think that's the route I'm going to go as my number 2 option. His price is right. He's shown that it was a mistake leaving him down in the minors all season long because he's been playing well since he's been up, and I'm really liking the matchup and him leading off against a very hittable pitcher.
Yeah, 4.1K is actually a very reasonable price. I'm going to go down a little bit lower and just throw this name at you. He hasn't homered just yet. I'm not going to make any ballsy predictions, but he will shun the BBPers because J.J. Hardy, we all know J.J. Hardy is, at least historically, is best versus left-handed pitchers, but for whatever reason, Mark Burley's got his number. I think he's 3 for 25 career versus Burley.
Yeah, I think that it's because Burley quick pitches him, but either way, Hardy. I'm not going to say it either because it's been way too many people have looked like fools trying to call a J.J. Hardy home run. Earlier today in the morning, and I was thinking about it, I said, I think today's a good day for J.J. Hardy to get a hold of one, but I started thinking more and more, and I said, maybe not today. But you got to say, it's going to come, but when the hell is it going to be? And, if not tonight, if they can get that game in and that wind is blowing out, it could be the night.
Well, it could be. It certainly could be. There's the form is still alive. People are still predicting when he's going to dong, and if you predict accurately, assuming you're the first person to say that date, make sure to double check that someone else didn't beat you to it. I don't know how many dates are booked up at this point. You got to take November. I have no idea when he's going to dong, but only 3 Ks by the way. Only 3 Ks in 25 at bats, so that's promising.
Yeah, I mean he hasn't been K'ing as that much at all this year. He's been just average, a little bit above average, in terms of hitting around 300, and I don't know. It's something I can't explain how you go from being like a 240 hitter with 25 home runs every year to a 300 hitter with 0. But hey, he's he's still getting his starts at short in the lineup, so it sucks because he's usually that GPP player that you want to play, and he'll carry you over the top with a home run or 2 or a big game, but instead he's just been not killing you, but not lighting the world on fire, to say the least.
I thought for sure Segura would be out of the 8-hole today, but he's not. He's 5K versus a lefty, and that disappoints me. So I'm probably not going to play him. If he was batting leadoff or somehow 5th or something like that, I'd be intrigued. 8 spot, I'm passing. Here's a guy that I know you like. I have a feeling you like this because this is like a Boggs play. Jonathan VR, 3.6K batting 9th.
I don't hate it. I like I said, I think the price for Didi is too ripe to really kind of go elsewhere around that price range. Obviously, if you have a top option, like I said, is Jose Reyes. But I don't hate VR. You're right. I've taken him a couple times. He hits in that 9 hole, And if he gets on base, he scores because you got Altuve and Springer in the top of that lineup coming up there. And against the lefty, I don't hate it. I would prefer him actually against a right-handed pitcher because of stolen base potential. But he doesn't really have how many does he have on the year? He's got 11.
He's not playing that much.
Yeah, I mean he gets the occasional day off. He was dealing with like a wrist injury or something, but I don't hate it. But like I said, I'd lean towards Hardy, but I'm pretty much going to go with Gregorius tonight.
All right. Any other shortstops we should talk about, or shall we move on to the outfield?
Let's move on to outfield.
All right. Throw me your top outfielders. My top guy is I hate putting the asterisk by it again. Obviously, the Blue Jays, Bautista, okay, Rain, and Ryan Braun versus Jonathan East. Rain. That's my two top guys.
Yeah, I had Adam Jones and Gomez a little bit higher than Braun and Bautista. I just really like how Jones has been swinging the bat against not the easiest pitcher in the world, but coming in, you're swinging the bat well. Mark Burley's he's not going to blow anything by you. So I had Adam Jones, especially at his price, as my top option. And I liked Gomez a little bit better than Braun because of the spacious ballpark. And, I know against a lefty, stolen base potential isn't really there. But the spacious ballpark, those doubles turn into triples for Gomez. They don't for Braun. So that's kind of my reasoning behind it. I know that they're around the same price range here. On some sites, Gomez, I think over on FanDuel, he's the most expensive bat. But I like both of them. I just have Gomez a little bit higher than Braun.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue. They're all good. Here's what I will say. This one's going to put the BBPers to the test because it doesn't really make any sense. It's only 14 at-bats, but Nelson Cruz, we know how he's been absolutely abusing left-handers this year. 0 for 14 versus Mark Burley in his career. That doesn't scare you, right?
Well, like I said, it's Burley's kind of a unique pitcher in that he likes to quick pitch you. He gets on the mound and he pitches the ball every single time. He's notorious for having some of the quickest games in Major League Baseball history. So sometimes that affects batters if they are afraid to call time or they're not comfortable doing that or they get screwed doing that. He can be frustrating. So I think Cruz is in a decent spot. His price over here on
very cheap
Draft Street, it's very tempting. Yeah, for whatever reason, these guys over here at Draft Street, they seem to love Mark Burley tonight, and not big fan of Gausman. So it's interesting. I'm intrigued by it, but I could understand how certain batters they don't fare well against Mark Burley. It's just that simple.
I hate talking about the BVP incessantly, but Baltimore is really interesting BVP today versus Mark Burley. You got two extremes. You got Adam Jones, who's 10 for 26, Markakis, 18 for 42, Delman Young, 17 for 45, and then you have J.J. Hardy, 3 for 25, Chris Davis, 6 for 16. It's either one or the other. So it's interesting. I'm not necessarily basing my decisions off that. Just think it's worth pointing out.
Okay, I have something. I have a question for you. This is why I think BVP is worth considering. Is R.A. Dickey? Do you factor in splits when you're facing R.A. Dickey?
No. Well, I think he's absolutely the extreme, and I think BVP for a knuckleballer means a lot more than BVP versus your standard right-hander, left-hander, whatever.
But I'm saying you got a unique pitcher. That's when Chris Sale's on the mound. I don't look at splits against the other team because he doesn't throw like your average left-handed pitcher. And Burley, I mean, it's he's just a crafty left-hander, and he's unique in the sense that he gets on the mound, he throws the ball, he's very quick, and that's why I think you see kind of these drastic splits like you do oftentimes with R.A. Dickey. You either hit a knuckleball or you can't. And I think Burley's, like I said, he's a frustrating pitcher at times. But he's also doesn't have the stuff to really blow you away, like I said. So I'm not saying don't play Nelson Cruz because he's impatient and can't hit Mark Burley, but I'm just saying maybe that's something that factors in against a guy like Burley.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's if that theory is true, it certainly holds true for at least this Baltimore lineup because it's either lots of success or no success. Okay, so we mentioned some of the big boys, some of the big bats. I'm gonna go back to Houston. I'm gonna pick on Wade Miley. George Springer at 6.3K that's really reasonable, no?
Oh, I've got him as my number 3 option of the night. I said I liked Braun, and I do, but Adam Jones, Gomez, and Springer for me. I'm now a believer. I did, I have to admit, I thought he was extremely overrated coming in, but Wade Miley does not have the stuff to, get past George Springer. He throws a lot of fastballs, and that's what George Springer loves to hit. So at his, very moderate price tag, it's more of a price play because I don't think he's a better hitter than Braun by any means, but I'm loving George Springer at 6,300.
Yeah, I agree. I think as far as a value play, I think it's a very strong value. 6.3 is about the average price of your hitter, more or less. So I have no issues with that. Jacoby Ellsbury, 5.9K versus the lefty. That's very much on sale, and they always factor in lefty and lefty splits on Draft Street. Is that cheap enough to consider?
Who is this again? Sorry, I was...
Jacoby Ellsbury, 5.9K versus the lefty, Elias.
Yeah, I haven't been on Ellsbury for most of this year. I don't hate it, but I think it's still a little bit too expensive. He's not going to have very much steal potential. I don't believe he was in the lineup last time. Probably the reason why New York struggled so much. But he can hit lefty. He's going to be. I prefer him when he's leading off and he's against a right-handed pitcher. That's
basically third these days.
Yeah, and it's not a terrible spot in the lineup, but obviously more RBI potential. But is Ellsbury off Elias really going to get a hold of one tonight? I don't know. I don't think so. I would say the odds are no. So I'm not all over Ellsbury. I don't hate it, but there are other few guys I would go down cheaper.
I'm gonna keep the bad BVP the BVP storyline alive. Diane Vicieto, the tank, we usually unleash him versus lefties. For some reason, he's 9 for 25 against Max Scherzer. He's got 3 doubles, a triple, 2 dongs, and 9 Ks. So pretty much, if he does not strike out, that's saying a lot because he's striking out like in 40% of his at-bats. But if he doesn't strike out, he's 9 for 17, 9 for 16.
I'm curious to see how those numbers were before Scherzer, figured things out, because he always had so much potential, but Scherzer used to be so wild, and this was only like 2 or 3 years ago.
Sure.
And I think this was like Vicieto's first or second year in the league, kind of similar to Abreu, in which Scherzer was struggling and the team didn't really have a good scouting report on him. So that's one we should look up after the show. And see, how recent years' success has been against him, because I think it might paint a very drastically different picture.
I'm not saying it's a great play. I'm just saying 3.3K is really, really cheap. And if you want to play contrarian, not for a cash game, I'm not doing it because he can strike out 3 times very easily tonight. But for a tournament, that price is tempting, especially considering his upside. Maybe Scherzer doesn't pitch the whole game, yada, yada, yada. I think he's an interesting tournament play if you're looking for somebody really, really cheap.
How about Alfonso Soriano, all the way down as the fourth cheapest guy? He's taking on a lefty. He's going to be in the lineup, I think.
He's so bad.
Yeah, what the hell's his deal this year?
He's like 40. I think that's the deal.
Well, yeah, I mean, hey, I can't dog that, but maybe those. He's unique. He swings the heaviest bat in Major League Baseball.
Still, right? Like it looks like it's way too big for him.
Yeah, drop it down an inch, or take a few ounces off that bad boy. I know that earlier in his career he had some kind of like reflex something with his muscles where he was capable of swinging such a heavy bat, which is why he had so much power. But who knows? I think that the years are catching up to him, and poor Alfonso. He's been struggling, but I might take a flyer on him tonight.
Only for your tournament games, not for your cash games. He's put up a negative 3 of the last 4 nights on Draft Street. He tends to strike out a lot. So, but yeah, the price is certainly worth a look. It warrants a look. It demands a look, I suppose, for tournaments. Somebody asked in the chat, what are your top stacks tonight? Who do you got for me? Top teams. Who are you rolling out?
Well, I think Houston is one. I also, as kind of a contrarian stack, I was looking at Boston. They've been very disappointing. And then obviously with the weather in Baltimore and Toronto, um, they would be up there. But I think, I don't know, I've got a kind of a strange feeling about Seattle tonight. They tend to have kind of these big games out of nowhere. All of their guys, and especially in that outfield, those bats are extremely cheap.
Logan Morrison's back.
Yeah, and then don't get me started on Logan
Lobo.
Morrison, dude. Don't get me started on that clown. Yeah, everyone with the exception of Logan Morrison. No, but I like the top of that lineup. They've got a few guys that have some pop. I don't necessarily like Romero batting fifth, but yeah, I mean Andy Chavez, James Jones, they're not. I don't. And the guy, I'm kind of talking myself out of this because they're not going to blow up and have like 6 or 7 home runs like you would expect from a stack. But these are guys that can get on, steal bases. I'm pretty sure, I haven't seen the lineup, that Murphy, the backup catcher, is going to be in. And, Chavez, Jones, they get on base. Cano can double. Seager, he can hit one out. And I think that's how the stack pays off, by a bunch of guys just getting a ton of hits, base hitting the Yankees to death. So I think that's an intriguing one for me. Obviously, don't sleep on Arizona because Feldman is Feldman and he can get blown up anytime. But yeah, that's probably where I'd lean, especially with this weather. I'm leaning Houston and Seattle of all teams. Houston and Seattle, I think, are my two kind of under the radar stacks.
And I think Milwaukee's interesting if that game goes. Milwaukee can really.
Oh yeah, I mean Milwaukee would probably be my top option. Baltimore up there as well. Burley's going to have one of these blow-up games soon, and then obviously Toronto against Gausman. But it's where we're concerned about the weather here. And I know someone in chat did mention which games we thought, like, kind of right now would play. Do you have any late weather updates yet?
I'm not going to be able to educate these people any more than our weatherman, and he actually just posted in the forum. It's up there right now, and I'm going to link it when we're done because
Perfect.
I'm just guessing, and this guy's a professional, so yield to him over me.
Yeah, actually, I mean, from what I'm seeing, it looks like Baltimore might get that game in, and then the Mets. It looks like they're going to start, but it looks like there's going to be some weather coming in. Obviously, check that. I need to check it myself, which I'm going to do here as we wrap things up. But,
we're creeping up on 5:30. Let's get one question in before we go. We got Kyle Seager and Didi Gregorius, or Jose Reyes and Ricky Weeks.
I'm kind of liking that Seager-Didi combination. I'm just not really sold on Ricky Weeks. He's just in that. If he were at home in a ballpark that favors hitters, I would probably go that route all day long. I know I mentioned that Reyes is up there for me, but Didi is as well. And I like Seager as a kind of an under-the-radar sneaky play tonight, so that's where I'm going to lean.
The chat's losing it, by the way. Apparently, Brazil was just given a free a penalty kick that was probably unwarranted. I've not seen the replay. Maybe it was a flop. I'm not really sure, but they seem to disapprove and little home cooking, little home field whistling apparently. So all right. On that note, it is 5:30. We have looks like Head Chopper and CSU. Head Chopper and CSU are on deck. They're knocking on the door. Anything you want to say before we get out of here? You have to actually click it to go because we're on Google Hangouts. It's all on you.
Exactly. I'll wrap it up. Just good luck tonight, guys. Keep it going and holler.
Hey!